Joe Rogan has a really popular podcast where he talks to important people, and sometimes they argue. The podcast is called The Joe Rogan Experience, and it's super famous, especially since he moved it to Spotify in a big deal worth a lot of money. He started the podcast on YouTube in 2009, and by 2015, it became one of the most watched podcasts globally. In 2020, he signed a big deal with Spotify for exclusive rights to his show, rumored to be around $100 million, but later, people said it might be even more, like $200 million. Joe Rogan talks about a lot of different things on his show, like Bud Light boycotts, transgender ideas, vaccines, and even President Joe Biden's health. Sometimes what he says on the show gets people talking online. Joe Rogan has had really famous people on his podcast, and it's so popular that even former President Donald Trump wanted to be on it. While most guests get along fine, some have had arguments with Joe, and we'll talk about those disagreements. On June 1st, 2018, things got spicy on Joe Rogan's podcast when political commentator Candace Owens came on. They went head-to-head on the topic of climate change, and it was like a verbal wrestling match. Candace Owens, known for her views, gave a thumbs up to Trump for ditching the Paris Climate Accord. Rogan, visibly shocked, couldn't believe Owens didn't think we should care about the environment at all. It was like Rogan was saying, "You're not into recycling? Not even a smidge?" Owens clarified she's not a litter bug but dropped a bomb. She doesn't believe in climate change. According to her, the climate always changes, and the Paris deal was just a money grab. Rogan, looking confused, said climate change is super complex. He was like, "Have you talked to all the scientists, or are you just winging it?" It was like a science-themed stand-up routine. Owens, feeling like it wasn't her hill to die on, argued there's a big debate in the science community. Rogan, playing the science teacher, said, "Nah, most scientists agree we're messing up the climate." They went back and forth like a debate club on a caffeine high. Even though Rogan insisted climate change is real, Owens stuck to her guns, saying the climate changes naturally. Rogan, probably wishing he had a climate change PowerPoint, said Owens was missing the point. He even questioned why she had such a strong opinion without a science background, making it sound like a science-themed roast. Owens, holding her ground, felt climate change got all political, leading to her skepticism. Rogan, the voice of reason, told her she needed more information before dismissing climate change. He was like, "Don't just say you don't believe, educate yourself and then spill the tea." It was like a comedy show with a science lesson. Surprisingly, after all the back and forth, they ended up laughing together. It was like they went from a debate to a comedy club, proving that even when you clash on serious topics, you can still find a way to share a good laugh. In the not-so-distant past, Joe Rogan had a clash with political commentator Steven Crowder on his podcast. They dove into a spirited discussion about marijuana, and it was like a comedy roast with a side of cannabis. It all started when Rogan, puffing on a pipe, asked Crowder what topics he'd steer clear of. Crowder, not a fan of marijuana, expressed his disinterest but criticized people making claims about its medical benefits. He even suggested that turmeric and ginger were better for cancer than weed. Rogan, like a pro-weed stand-up, argued that cannabidiol and cannabis had great benefits for cancer. The debate got heated, with Rogan accusing powerful groups of lobbying to keep marijuana illegal. Crowder, trying to chime in, got a "don't interrupt me, you fuck" from Rogan. They argued about traffic fatalities, with Crowder claiming a surge in states where marijuana was decriminalized. Rogan, armed with scientific studies, insisted on marijuana's benefits, comparing it to turmeric and a reduced sugar diet. Crowder, unimpressed, said he didn't believe smoking marijuana was as good as cutting down on sugar. Things got personal when Rogan accused Crowder of caring about the topic. Rogan playfully insulted Crowder, calling him a lying boh and a fuck face. Despite the tense moments, they claimed to be friends, with Rogan smiling and joking. As the discussion continued, Crowder suggested that the marijuana issue was a touchy subject. Rogan, defensive, blamed Crowder for starting the talk-over game. They argued about road fatalities, with Crowder challenging Rogan to check his website for stats. Rogan, not caring about the website, shot back with a classic, "I don't care about your website, you fuck." In the end, Crowder revisited his point, saying he didn't care much about marijuana, but sensed it was a touchy subject. Rogan admitted he got defensive when people talked over him, blaming Crowder for starting it. This memorable clash turned into a YouTube highlight, capturing the lively and sometimes heated discussions that make Joe Rogan's podcast both entertaining and unpredictable. In 2015, Joe Rogan had a fiery clash with Milo Yiannopoulos, the former editor of Breitbart News. They argued about Christianity, cultural values, and even Milo's own sexuality. Milo, known for his controversial views, claimed that places without a strong Christian heritage have bad morals. Rogan, not having it, called it a ridiculous statement. Milo stood firm, stating that European and American culture, rooted rooted in Judeo-Christian values, is superior. Rogan challenged this, saying being a good person isn't solely based on those values. Milo insisted that our sense of right and wrong ultimately comes from the Bible. The discussion got messy, with Rogan calling out Milo for talking over him. They debated whether relying on ancient myths was necessary for ethics and understanding. Rogan argued against it, bringing up Milo's sexuality, which is prohibited in the Bible. Milo admitted he'd prefer to be heterosexual, leading Rogan to ask if he was a self-loathing homosexual. Milo defended himself, saying his sexuality isn't crucial to who he is. Rogan disagreed, highlighting how often Milo talks about it on the show. Milo explained that people often bring up the most different or unusual things about themselves to be funny. Rogan insisted Milo's sexuality was relevant, noting its prohibition in some cultures. Milo targeted Islam, claiming they still practice killing gay people. Rogan brought up biblical teachings on homosexuality, leading Milo to say he wouldn't be gay if he had the choice. The discussion took a surprising turn when Rogan asked if Milo would take an anti-gay pill if it existed. Milo admitted he probably would, despite it being career suicide. The clash ended with both standing firm on their views, leaving a memorable mark on the podcast. In 2017, Joe Rogan had an interesting talk with Blink-182's Tom DeLonge about UFOs. DeLonge, passionate about unidentified flying objects, called them advanced aerial threats and shared his deep interest in the subject since junior high. Things got a bit awkward when DeLonge started talking about time travel and artificial gravity bubbles. Rogan, curious, asked where he got this information. DeLonge cryptically referred to being surrounded by people connected to NASA and the CIA. Rogan, puzzled, questioned if DeLonge's sources were credible. DeLonge, representing more than himself, was careful with details. He shared experiences of high-level meetings and encounters near the Pentagon, claiming to have been introduced to someone who revealed they found a life form during the Cold War. Rogan, skeptical, pressed on why DeLonge was chosen for such confidential information. DeLonge defended his role, saying intelligence agencies don't have a monopoly on information. He argued that with his fame and access to patterns and information, he could share stories that agencies couldn't. Rogan remained unconvinced, questioning why DeLonge, a rock star, was trusted with top-secret information about UFOs. Despite Rogan's skepticism, DeLonge continued his UFO research, even appearing in a Netflix show about UFO projects. Recently, he expressed joy after a special hearing, claiming alien life exists and the US government holds specimens. DeLonge's to the stars. Academy research was mentioned in the hearing, making him proud and grateful to those who testified. So even though Rogan didn't fully buy into DeLonge's UFO tales, it seems DeLonge's dedication to the subject has found acknowledgement in some high-profile discussions. In a 2021 appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience, Mikhaila Peterson, daughter of Jordan Peterson, discussed the benefits of the carnivore diet. When she mentioned increased energy on this diet, Rogan challenged the idea that people lack energy for exercise, calling it an excuse for the average fat fuck. Rogan argued that discipline and diet are not mutually exclusive, emphasizing the importance of exercise for everyone. Peterson, acknowledging her autoimmune condition, defended her perspective, highlighting her father's positive change after adopting the carnivore diet. Rogan, however, maintained that energy is not a barrier to exercise, even for those who claim they lack it. He urged people to make a mental decision to incorporate physical activity into their lives, emphasizing that it doesn't have to be extreme. In another episode with comedian Nick DiPaolo in January 2019, the conversation heated up when discussing President Trump's alleged ties with Russia. Rogan suggested that Trump had business dealings with Russia, prompting DiPaolo to argue that it wasn't illegal. When Rogan mentioned Trump's lies, DiPaolo questioned the definition of a lie and criticized media outlets reporting on Trump's inaccuracies. As Rogan presented articles tallying Trump's untruths, DiPaolo accused the media of bias and deflected by bringing up Hillary Clinton. Rogan explained the concept of whataboutism, which DiPaolo continued by questioning the honesty of other political figures like Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. The conversation became increasingly intense, with Rogan accusing DiPaolo of defensiveness and emotional investment in the topic. In a lighter moment, Rogan asked DiPaolo if he believed people become more conservative as they age. DiPaolo, injecting humor, responded that he had always been a bit of a doc, and even joked about having a tattoo of former President Richard Nixon on his posterior, eliciting laughter in the studio. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Your suggestions for future videos are always welcome in the comments below.